This is We Bleed Orange and Black, the podcast for Halloween and horror lovers. Join us as we interview creators, discuss our favorite folklore, and share original spooky stories. I'm Jeff C. Carter, and this week we're talking with Shane Hawk about Never Whistle at Night 2, Back for Blood. Shane Hawk is a horror writer, editor, and creator of the Native Horror Index. He serves as a contributing editor at Counterpoint Press, where he exclusively acquires and edits works by Indigenous North American writers. Hawk is the co-editor of the best-selling anthology series Never Whistle at Night and co-writer of the horror stage play The Land Has Spoken. He lives in San Diego, California with his wife and daughter and is an enrolled member of the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes. Shane, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Never Whistle at Night, Volume 1 is in its millionth printing. What has this ride been like, ushering that project into the world?
It's been a blessing in one word. I could talk about, how it came to fruition, but it was a roller coaster. I entered the horror scene in October 2020 with my first collection, Anoka. And then the idea was bringing about in December 2020. And then inviting authors to this kind of concept that wasn't even written yet. And then basically landing a literary agent within the invitation phase of someone. It was Shri Demoline's agent, Rachel Latovsky. And she offered representation for me and my work, but then also Ted tangentially just for the project. And that's where it kind of like really took off. And she had us study. We got permission from Jeff Vandermeer to study his, he and his wife's book proposal for the Weird Compendium, which is just such a thick boy of a book. And it was really fast. So I was learning literally every day, every hour of every day. And then, that was back in 2021, early 2021, when we sold it to Vintage Books, and then to imprints of Penguin Random House Canada, so McClellan and Stewart and Random House Canada. And it's just been a journey. That was December 2020 when the nugget of an idea was kind of really jumping around. And then publication day was, I believe, September 23rd. No, September 19th, 2023. And even, all the pre-orders setting up before that. And there was just so much excitement across Turtle Island, and so many people reaching out to me like, thank you for making this happen. And it was amazing. And then thereafter, it's gotten even better. Now it's 3 years, it's almost 3 years later. We're in July 2026. And we just saw that it's on Netflix on a show.
4 seasons.
The 4 seasons with Tina Fey and Will Forte. And it's just a random choosing. No one reached out to us. Whoever was on set, or maybe even the actor himself, chose it. And it has like a minute full across the episode of screen time, especially like a 10-second zoom in on the book itself, the front cover. So that was amazing. Recent news also, like it's immortalized in the President's Reading Room at the Obama Presidential Center that just opened in Southside Chicago, which is a specified room within that center, because it also has a public library branch within it, which you could just regularly check out books, but then a specific reading room where books were chosen by the Obamas to be in there, and you can't check them out, and you could just go in there and see it. And there's a bunch of examples, I've seen it in Germany. I've seen it in, I believe, Japan. I've seen it down under. It was on sale at the UN, United Nations.
Oh, wow.
It's been all over, and just last night I posted a kind of a highlight post to kind of celebrate the narrators for the first book. Which included 10 Indigenous voice actors, or they're also actors and such in their own way. And, all the love for that, with keeping up the oral traditions for people that check out the audiobook. It's been just amazing. I've connected with so many people across the country and into past the northern border. Just so many people coming up to me at signings, after talks, after whatever I might be doing. I also taught at a horror residency in Banff, the Banff Center for the Arts and Creativity, alongside Jessica Johns and Cherie Demeline. Like that's a dream. Like all these things have happened that just seem like they're unbelievable, and they kind of are, you know. But I'm living it, so it's happened.
The fact that you launched this during COVID, that must have been like so intense because on the one hand, you're in a bubble, but on the other hand, it must have been coming at you fast and furious. I can't imagine like
Yeah.
how deeply you dove into that world while
hmm
everything else was on pause.
Yeah, it's yeah, we all had time, I guess, you know, and I'm sure, you know, the publishing industry, we're all stuck to our computers and such, and they probably were working from home, you know, so we're just all kind of hunkered down and trying to survive and pass the time and make cool things. And we got to do this, and now we're going to do it again. It's like 26 days from now.
But no
Second one's coming
lockdown.
out.
And now you're a young parent. Like it
Yeah,
could not be more different and no pressure, right? Because, the
right.
first book is in Obama's reading room. So no pressure on the second volume.
Yeah, no pressure, right? Yeah, that was our main concern, you know, whether you're a filmmaker, musician, right? You write books, create books, edit them, you're scared of that sophomore slump. And so we really wanted to try hard to avoid that and to be like, it's not as good as the first one. We wanted to really avoid that reaction across the, you know, you might hear that some here in early reviews, but overwhelmingly a lot of the early reviews have been saying this is outdone the first one. This is crazy. This is like what I wanted from the first one. And we kind of, you know, we listened to all the fans and the readers, and Ted and I kind of religiously read the reviews on Goodreads, which isn't recommended if the work is solely yours, you know, if you're the author of it, like a novel or such. But kind of as co-editors, we both have a story in there, and we kind of like created this little baby that's turned into a monster itself. So we kind of have some distance. So we've read like over, I don't know how many there are now, like over 5,000 written reviews. Just every day or every couple days, we log on and just filter by newest and just check it out, see what people are saying. Still 3 years later, and so we saw a lot of people asking for more horror.
Mhm.
'Cause the first one we were kind of lax. This is due to kind of a lot of it was Ted and I kind of coming into this project with, and no fault to any publisher that we worked with, but kind of minimal guidance. We were
Mhm.
just like really figuring it out day to day. And we were also, I mean, Ted was more prominent than me at the time and still is. But we were like, you know, we're working with these award-winning authors and, you know, Tommy Oren's Pulitzer finalist. And, you know, how do we go about, you know, making demands or like pushing them with their own work when I'm just this little person over here and they're this
Right,
kind of
right, right.
behemoth in writing across different genres or literary, right? So we didn't push them too hard to like really draw out the horror. We wanted to give them the space to kind of create their version of a horror story, because a big draw of the first one and largely the second one again is a lot of these folks don't write horror. They might have told spooky stories around a campfire, you know, or in a tent with a flashlight, but a lot of these folks, they write YA or kid lit or literary, or you know, thrillers, dramas, whatever. But that was part of the fun, was to kind of get them to write what they would think horror is. So the first book is labeled dark fiction,
Mm.
um, where the second one is labeled horror straight up. So in the first one, you might see a lot of melancholic stories, kind of like darker. The vibes are, you know, some more depressing, more like looking at humanity through this lens of indigeneity. The second one is it's still as deep, and it's still as profound, but then also there's an extra layer of, I think we turn up the fun a bit more, and we turned up like more creature features. There's more blood spilled. more things that you would kind of check off boxes if you're a horror fan. And I think we did a great job listening to the fans and the readers.
Volume 2 is called Back for Blood. Your mission statement was all horror. I had so much fun reading the foreword to this collection. I mean, it's always interesting to find out how these things evolve and how you shepherd something like this into being.
Mm,
But every line of this foreword was so impactful and so insightful.
thank you.
You describe traditional stories as often being cyclical. You say
Mm,
that the endings can be different from those from Western literary conventions,
mm,
where they might seem abrupt. They're actually handoffs, and that goes to
yep.
the shared nature of this oral storytelling tradition. It's not just one person's story, you're passing it on. There's all these great little nuggets I kind of want to get into from the forward.
Sure.
Something interesting you say is that the appetite for indigenous horror is often an appetite for a bestiary, as opposed to
Yeah.
just meeting the stories where they're at or taking
Mm,
the whole story in context instead of just cherry
yep.
picking interesting details. Was that something that you encountered in terms of feedback from the first book or from your first collection, Anoka?
Yeah. I would say it's from both. Basically, that introduction that is co-written by Ted and I, we really were kind of answering a lot of that feedback that we've been reading for 3 years and hearing at conventions and signings and all sorts of events and virtual events too. In that there's a large expectation, and this wasn't just a few reviews. By now, it's probably maybe a third of them, um, thinking that our stories are just kind of things to kind of extract creatures or folklore or these kind of esoteric concepts from our different nations and tribes. And we wanted to kind of correct the record with that introduction, both to set up what you're about to consume, if you want to call it that, consumption, right? That's what stories kind of become, especially horror stories.
Mm.
But we wanted to really address things from the first book and things that we've encountered as native people in this space, literary space, as living people. And we kind of just feel like a chunk of the population that comes across this book just kind of sees our stories or our storytelling as kind of expendable or just kind of something to just dive into and just kind of take from in a way. And that's why we were thinking, this isn't a bestiary. This isn't just a collection of, um, things to just take with you and repackage. Because we've seen that with creatures that I won't name, um, that have been so repackaged and, taken and just they're far from what they originally were. And that happens to a lot of things, but it's very annoying when it happens to stuff that's revolved around different native cultures. And I think in that intro we make a statement that you should probably never refer to it as native culture, or I got around to that idea that we're not monolithic,
Mm.
and also these stories are singular in that none of us 21 writers in this second one are representatives of our tribe or nation, and a lot of people think that whenever they come across a story or even everything I say on this podcast,
Right. Like you're the one
I am,
mouthpiece for
yeah,
your
yeah,
tribe. Yeah.
exactly. Or, a lot of times when we write these stories, especially if you're dealing in darker genres, you don't really share everything. And there's protocols about what you share, what's appropriate written down, or if you're saying it to a friend, there's different ways to do things and share. And there's a lot of things that we don't write down, especially something that you get paid for, and it becomes a part of this kind of machine of capitalism. And so there's just certain things that we really addressed from feedback in person and online, where we're trying to set up as nice as possible. We weren't trying to be mean or
Mm-hmm.
castigate anyone, but we also kind of feel it was our duty to step in and somewhat educate, if you want to use that term, I guess. but there's a lot of onus on Native peoples just existing and I guess feeling the need to educate and correct things. That a lot of us get tired of it, but I think in this case we probably better off doing it. And it also kind of introduced it for new readers that haven't read the first one. So we're speaking at different levels to newcomers, to people that loved the first one, or maybe didn't love the first one, but they're trying us again, trying to see what we've curated and edited for them. And yeah, we tackle quite a few issues and
It's
things
really
to
dense,
look
but
at.
it's a great read. And I love how you frame it as these are stories that are more specific and more
Mm,
delicate. And no, they're not going to just lay out everything, because the purpose of this story is not to just share a laundry list of details or stories that are not meant to be shared publicly. And
yeah.
part of telling any short story is what you show and what you don't, where you
Mhm.
shine the spotlight and what you want people to take away from that, because you're not filling out a novel's worth of information. So every short story is about choices, and this is
Yeah.
just more dialed in choices. I thought that was a really good way of describing it. You also have this line that I
Thank you.
love: horror is not a detour from serious literature. And
Thank
I've
you.
been
I think
feeling
I
that a
wrote that one.
lot lately. That's really well put. And this idea that horror is the one genre that can tackle all of these things that we don't talk about, or that wouldn't be necessarily appropriate or given the
Mhm.
correct weight in other genres.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I just did a podcast on Jeff Barnaby's Blood Quantum feature film, which, RIP Jeff, we didn't get any more from you. We really wanted to see a lot more. But he made two amazing feature films. And I read an interview before I did that podcast with him, and I think a radio station or something. And he kind of goes across that same idea. And I see what he's saying after I've already, co-written that introduction. And it was along the same lines. It's horror as an indigenous person using it to tell our stories is a lot more useful in ways. And you can make, if you want to bring in these issues, whether they're past, present, future issues, and make a documentary, and those are great too. Neither me or Jeff were, um, speaking ill of documentaries, because I love them too. But then if you're droning on about certain issues, you might lose an audience, you might lose, interest and such. But you can explore these things through genre, especially the darker genres, if it's something like residential / boarding schools.
Mm-hmm.
Just That's just one huge topic, but all these different things, land rights, fishing rights, um, foster care system, all these things, that have a really dark past and, have intergenerational trauma. Um, it's really nice to be able to see that horror is being taken as a serious thing now versus, oh, it's just blood and guts and poorly written slop, right?
Just for
Um,
shock value, as opposed to having a
right.
literary dimension to it. I
Yeah.
mean, in our little bubble, it's being taken seriously. I think broader, I almost no shots at other genres, but I
Yeah.
feel so. You and I both grew up in an era where horror was king, and
Mhm.
then horror went away. They just
Yep.
took it off the shelves and they renamed it all as thriller or mystery. There was no such thing as a
Yeah.
horror shelf in your average bookstore. And then slowly but surely, horror's making a comeback. And I feel like sorry, this is a weird rant.
No, it's
I
okay.
feel like as the publishing industry is shrinking and buckling under pressure, the impetus to shift towards romantasy is so strong that I
Mhm.
feel like they're kind of grudgingly keeping horror around. But man, if they could
Mhm.
flick a switch and just be like, you know what? Let's clear those shelves of all the horror books and let's just make it all romantasy, because let's be honest, that's what's moving tonnage
That's
of
true.
books.
That's
So,
true.
yeah, I like the
Yeah.
idea that people are taking horror more seriously, and maybe in film they are. I think it's
Mhm.
still a bit of a struggle in the literary world.
Well, yeah, well, I mean, so many books can be sold, right? So many people actually read them, you know. I just came across a Instagram like reel that was some paid service where you can pay them to make your book looks aged and read on the shelf per book. Some people are doing that out there, I guess. But I see, yeah, the industry, it's always going to be the industry. So
Right.
they're always trying to make money. That's the purpose, right? And make the authors money. That's just the system that we're in. So whatever makes money, they're going to chase it, you know. So that I could definitely see that huge pivot toward romantasy, and that newer one I just heard termed, what was it, necromantasy. So there's that happening too. Um, yeah, but I think horror is having another moment,
Mhm.
and we're hoping it's more of an era,
Right,
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 than a
right.
moment. But I think, like we say in the introduction, Ted coined this part, but we are kind of seeing Indigenous horror have like a groundswell effect instead of
Mm.
just a wave, because the
Right, right,
waves
right.
eventually crash, right? So we're hoping that that's the case, and that's what it feels like. We'll see, but it's been very fun to kind of be at the forefront of Indigenous or Native horror and just see everyone bloom. And I've seen so many different people writing books currently that I can't talk about, and um, I'm really excited for what's to come.
Talking about volume 2, it was half invited authors and half open call. You're repeating that from volume 1. What
Yeah,
was the decision behind that? What was it like fielding all of that open call submissions?
it was great fun. With the first one, it was very stressful because at the time I was substitute teaching. So that also kind of helped too, because I didn't have a ton of homework to grade, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was doing a lot of late nights, up till, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then going to work. But the first one, we didn't have a back end or a platform to receive submissions, and we didn't really want to do the whole email thing. But we kind of ended up doing that anyway, because last minute we couldn't use the publisher's submittable account for some reason.
Mm.
I'll just leave it at that. And then I had to that night build on my website at the time. I think I had a WordPress thing, and I built a whole form and a landing page for the announcement, because we delayed the announcement. And the whole form was basically the guidelines, which were very minimal, the pay, all the stuff that you see for submitting somewhere. And then like a little, I believe it was like an upload button. And then I had that uploader auto email to, I think it was my own email. And then I had to kind of trick it to also forward to this Gmail that we set up for the anthology that we still use now. And that was wild to just build that overnight, and then
That
we
sounds
announced the next day
crazy.
with the link. And I'm not really tech savvy, I could get around, I could do graphics and stuff, but the other stuff I was like YouTubing everything and just trying to figure it out on forums. But that was wild and kind of DIY in a way. I grew up as a punk and
Mm-hmm.
metalhead. So that was fun for me. And the first one, we also couldn't get help from the publisher due to some type of law across the border, because we were publishing with 3 imprints, one in New York City, 2 in Canada. And they could not post about the open call for us, with their socials and such. So all it had
Weird.
to be us. Yeah, it's some type of prize law. I never looked into it, but I believed them. I don't think they
Oh,
would. I don't think they would lie about that, because we were, giving money for the submissions and such.
right. Yeah, that
Yeah.
tracks. Oh, boy, I never would have
Yes.
considered that. That's what a weird complication, unforeseen.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. So we had to do all of that, along with paying everyone. We thought they'd be like an accountant and stuff, but no, it's all on you. And so, yeah, with that first one, it was a wild ride. And so we took in about 104 submissions. And then I was doing all the crazy work, because Ted is even less tech savvy than me. He's Gen X. But I was getting, we had the whole Google suite, right? So I had a Google Drive and all the folders and shit, and I made a spreadsheet. I'm a very unorganized person in my regular life, you know. I'm not type A and like on everything, and so it was really a big change. But it really helps getting into anthology mode with spreadsheets and stuff, because I uploaded every single email. I had to download the attachment. I had to upload all in folders and name them. And then I linked all of those in the spreadsheet with all of the writer details. So for the first one, we had 2 slush readers. One of them was David Tremblay. He's not really on socials much anymore. But he like writes for TV here and there, like The Lowdown. He wrote like an episode, I think, and he even acted in part of it. Sterling Harjo's recent show. And then a native book reviewer who actually was the person that actually sparked this idea back in December 2020, where they tweeted basically, "Hey, when are we going to get a native horror anthology out here?" And that's kind of like what sparked everything. And so we did a Zoom to kind of explain, because this is still like the pandemic, and also they live, you know, out of state and stuff. And even Ted, you know, I didn't meet Ted until I don't know, 2024. So, you know, 4 years later.
Wow. I like how that person put themselves on the hook. They're like, "Hey, when are we going to get this anthology?" And you're like, "Guess what? You're going to be reading slush piles."
We're doing it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So we coordinated like that. We basically had a column for each of us in the same spreadsheet. It was like a mega spreadsheet that had everything. And so, you know, slushes for free, and like, hey, take your time. We're not trying to force you to do this, but if you want to be involved, we would love to hear your thoughts on all these stories. You know, and we didn't even have a rating system or anything. It was just like little notes that we'd write in these columns. And we opened it up, I think it was July 21st, 2021. And then we stopped it November 1st, I think. And so there was quite a few at the beginning, trunk stories that, you know, didn't really fit it. You know, you kind of learn it as an anthologist. People don't read their guidelines. They just kind of throw it at you, see what sticks. And then a lot more the last like 3 weeks, we're just getting hit with all of them. So it was a big influx. But luckily, you know, as a teacher, you get Thanksgiving break, and then you get winter break, you know, especially as a substitute teacher at the time. It was really helpful. And then Ted, like, is a professor, and he got like a month off. So we really went through all the stories. So that was the first time. It was kind of like a DIY, like, what the fuck are we doing? You know, trying to learn every day, like pretty wild. Second time, we knew a lot more what to expect, and I definitely wanted some type of system. So I was looking around what horror magazines and sci-fi magazines use, and, you know, people that editors that take in a lot of submissions, and, you know, they're professionals, you know, unlike us. And so we came across, I still don't know how to pronounce it, Moksha or Moksha.
Right. Yeah. The automated submission form. Yeah.
So that helped so much. You know, you can just point your domain toward it, and that's what we did. I think the second time I used indigenoushorror.com because I own that, and I just had that as the submission thing. And oh my God, it was so much easier. We had no slush readers the second time. We allowed multiple submissions. That's something we didn't really think about the first time. We weren't against them. I'm always for multiple submissions and what's it called? Where you send it elsewhere.
Simultaneous
submissions. Because why would you, I don't know. I don't really understand those rules. But so we were all open to that. And so we had, I think, 156 submissions, because some people sent more than one story. And that was really helpful, because we definitely would have, if they only gave us one, we definitely would have not had them in the anthology for a couple of them. But, you know, some of them for sure, like all 2 or 3 stories were like amazing. And then it gives you that freedom to kind of see like, oh, we already have a story with this theme or this creature. This one's way stronger. Let's get this other story that they have that's really good about this certain, you know, theme or concept that we want to tackle. And it was so much easier. I mean, you know, with the rating system on the back end, Ted and I can just log in independently and just kind of see the history and like the little comments, and we kind of start ranking them. Maybe if it's below a 6, maybe we don't kind of revisit it, but maybe 7+ is like it has to be revisited and talked about. So with both anthologies, it was really hard to say no to people, because in Indian country, or Turtle Island, whatever you want to call our place here, it's very small. A lot of us know each other. I was coming into the scene, so I was still meeting a lot of people and like knowing them on Twitter and such, when Twitter was actually useful and good to use. But you're having to say no and like reject someone that you've been talking to online for a year or 2 or 3, or for Ted much longer.
That sounds like an added level of difficulty when the community is so small and tight knit. How do you reject stories?
Yeah. So it's like, a lot of these folks are my Facebook friends that I've been talking to for a long time, and I had to do that to someone like again the second time, like rejected them once again. So it's not fun. We don't revel in it, but it's very excruciating each time. We get our best down to like, I think 25, which just feels like a nice number, a quarter, right? And then I think 15, and then we really start having like Zoom calls, phone calls, constantly texting each other. And then we nail it down to 10 or whatever the number is. Sorry, because obviously it's not that low. But the first one had, I believe, 12 open call stories, and then 12 invitees, and then one each from Ted and me. And then the second one has one more open call story than the invitees. So that was kind of nice. We got to even do that more. And I believe, I've been ranting about all this. You also asked, what was that process like in pushing more open call stories, right, than not? And that was baked into the mission statement I wrote into the book proposal. It was really important for us to highlight or get a spotlight on Native writers that maybe don't have a big social following. Maybe they have a couple book sales, or maybe they have just short stories in places, or maybe they hadn't even tried this yet, but they really want to start a career and they love reading and they love horror. And so we saw some statistics during the pandemic, and I think that study was in 2019, where Native folks within the publishing industry, from the very bottom to the very top, only make up less than 1%. So it wasn't even really on the chart. And so we were kind of annoyed by that. I know our national population is around the same, maybe 3% max. So it's like, what do you expect? That's what a lot of people were telling me. What do you expect? You're a low population. But also, I love, more of our stories to exist. And, a lot of the gatekeeping prevents people from sharing their stories on a big scale. We're working with a big 5 publisher. Penguin Random House is the biggest publisher in the world. I know it's a huge umbrella corporation, but, we're with Vintage Books. They're pretty big. And so it was very important for us to push the idea of having a large portion of this book, whatever that number was going to be from an open call, be from not really established big names. So we had, Tommy Orange, Stephen Graham Jones with the foreword, because he was going to send us a reprint, but I said, we're trying for all original. And so he didn't have time. So we said, foreword would be amazing. So that's why he wrote that on like a plane ride. And we fixed like 1 comma, I think. Anyway, so yeah, we asked for 7 slots in the book proposal, because we didn't know. That sounded like a lucky number, right? And when Anna Kaufman at Vintage Books, we had our big phone call where they kind of sell themselves to you, to like, hey, pick us. She was like, hey, are you guys stuck on that number, 7? Like, does it have to be only 7? What if you get like 10, 11 amazing stories? And both Ted and I, if we were in the same room, we would have like turned to each other like, what? What'd she say? oh my God, she gets us. This is so cool to hear. Because everyone else previous to that, I won't name anyone, but a lot of them were like, you can't really sell anthologies with like, more than one or two unknowns. It can't be done. That sales are going to tank. I've tried this before, blah, 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 right? And these are big five, publishers and editors. And so we're like, no, we're just going to do it our way. So we asked for 7. And then in the end, we had total creative control. Like Anna Kaufman, she's our editor, but she kind of does the editing after we've already gone through all the stories. And basically, we ended up with 12, far more than than we said, and she was totally fine with it. So she trusted us the whole time. We didn't even show her the final stories until I think after we already signed the contract. It was like months and months and months into it, and we sent them to her, and she was like, all right, these are it. These are great. These are amazing. So yeah, it was just an amazing process. But we strive on trying to get Native and Indigenous writers that maybe they're just starting and things like that to get them noticed, because with the first one so far, not all of them went on to get a literary agent or to write large novels and such and get book deals, but a good handful have. Those that really wanted to get out there and sink their teeth in. We have Kushtuka, the opening story of the first anthology by Matilda Zeller.
That one was fantastic.
Yeah. Once we got that in
really
the submissions, both Ted and I on the call were like, that's the opener.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. A really strong start.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Amazing story. And she's expanded that into a novel now for Tor Nightfire.
Oh, cool.
Which I got to read early in blurb. It Looks Like You in the Dark. So that comes out in a couple months in October. You got Nick Medina putting out books almost every year now. And Tiffany Morris is doing like beautiful horror literature, just like, because she's a poet too. So she mixes that world. And Carson Faust has put out his debut, and it was really amazing. But we've seen, all these folks get book deals and agents, and there's even people that have been approached for literary agents that I'm not sure that they accepted. But then, TV interest and like optioning for short films and all sorts of stuff happening for these folks that were just starting out. And even with the second one, quite a few of the open call folks had no literary representation, and our agent is big on trying to get people help, and like with her power of a gatekeeper, like try to share that, right? And so we had a meeting, and she said, hey, can you give me all the contact information, or actually before that, can you reach out to all the open call contributors and see if they're even interested and okay with you sharing the email for my whole agency to maybe look at them and speak to them. And so before the book's even out, we were trying to get all of them, agents, those that would take it on. And I'm sure those that, didn't go at Transatlantic are getting interested parties outside that, so it's been really rewarding as the co-editor and, whatever you want to call me, to get this thing out there and to see the open call writers, emerging writers, whatever label, people don't like emerging anymore, but whatever you want to call them, get them opportunities, because that's what this whole thing's about. And we're trying to go up a level now, and we're working on a TV pitch deck to get this thing into a series on the screen. And that also employs natives, and whether it's actors, makeup artists, all this kind of thing. So it's amazing. It's been great.
Wow. It sounds like it's operating on so many levels beyond a typical anthology.
Oh yeah. We're trying to do things differently. I always remind Ted of that when we're looking at other anthologies and like choices they make and things that they're doing. I just kind of say, hey, we're doing things our way. We're able to do that. and let's keep doing that. And so it's really cool.
So speaking of doing things a little differently, can you tell me about the cover art and the new interior art for Volume 2?
Yeah, so both cover art were created by Perry de la Vega. And so with the first one, we were really trying to do this thing, as many indigenous people as possible, right, hired for this thing. And we really wanted a native artist to do the cover. The first one, we were trying to work with them, and it got passed on because the publisher and the marketing department thought the style was too dark. And we were like, you kind of learn at this Big Five level that they're just kind of rushing, like almost last minute, and like it's like bam, bam, bam. Now like they've done the other books, and now it's time to focus on this one. Let's do everything right now. So we were like sweating bullets because it was kind of like last minute. So they had to pass on the first artist, which I'm friends with, and he's great. And then the next one that we're considering, it was almost like a ledger art cover, if you are familiar with that. A lot of Plains natives, Plains Indians have this style of artwork that is taking from antique ledger paper, and they kind of have this traditional way of painting certain like 2D objects onto it. I could send you after the podcast some examples, but there's a really great artist that
I've seen some exhibits. Yeah.
Okay. So we're thinking about that idea of maybe, there's a bunch of, natives on horsebacks, and then also running, and then, contemporizing it too. Like, maybe one's on a moped or a motorcycle, and like we're all just trying to like go after this this herd of like monsters or something. Like if you spread it out, the back cover, maybe it'd be like a full scene. But the artist didn't have time, and we were really out of time. So we went with the in-house artist for vintage books, Perry de la Vega, who I've still never talked to. He's kind of an elusive, even on Instagram. I've never even saw a comment from him, but he's fantastic. And we were like, okay, we would love this kind of, because all these stories are very profound, and they're deep, and they're just not surface level, but then also not all of them are horror, but then also we really want to have the darkness in there, but also emphasize beauty. So we kind of told all those notes to him and said also, what if he did like a native take on like Midsummer, where there's nature involved, and maybe it's not too dark. There's bright elements, and then also it's also oddly sinister in a way, and that's what we got. If you look at the cover, there's plant life all around the corners, and there's little creatures, and there's like eyeballs and teeth and such. And he went even harder with the second one, which we love, because the second one is more horror, so it kind of matches. So that's Perry de la Vega. He's amazing. For the interior artwork, it's from Brent Learned. And so he's a Cheyenne Arapaho, my same tribe, painter, and he can paint anything you think of in the world. He does wonderful pastiches, and his own style is amazing if you look him up. But I met him out in Oklahoma when I was doing Indigipop X, which is kind of like the Indigenous Comic Con in 2024. And so we were like buddies, and he'd known Ted for a while, long time. And so I became friends with him now. And we were saying like out there, like, hey, I'd love to maybe, if not the cover, then something like interior for the next one, because the next one's going to happen. And so, I put that bug in Vintage Book's ear to like, include Indigenous art in the second one, because we really wanted that for the first one. It just, the time crunch and the artist mismatch and departments not, agreeing and stuff. So like, fuck, okay. Second one, it has to have, some native artist. And, he's, if you look at his website, or I'm not sure if he has his own website, but across different galleries, his originals sell for like thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. He's at the Smithsonian. He's like at all these worldwide museums. He's amazing. And he loves spooky, weird shit. And he has his own stories that, I won't say, but I asked him, and he's like, okay, yeah, I like this idea, and so he did all of them. We kind of he didn't have time to read the whole thing, so I basically gave him summaries of each story, and maybe told him like maybe an object to like highlight or like use in the art, and so that was his process, so he didn't honestly fully read all the stories. He got like a major summary from me for all of them, and he knocked it out of the park. Is we love all the little drawings. And then last minute, because we already paid him, Ted and I were like, shit, we have a cool forward from Richard Van Camp. He kind of hypes it up. He's like our hype man for part 2. But then also we kind of want to write an introduction. So the introduction was like a last minute thing.
Oh.
Like you want to set the record straight, want to kind of correct things and like give expectations. And then so we co-wrote that, which is a weird thing. Co-writing, we're trying to like piece it together because we both wrote pieces, and then we really like stuck them together somehow, and it worked in the end. But then we're like, oh shit, what if we just for fun, like what if we had Brant like paid him another whatever it was, what if we go and ask him, hey, can you like make a little drawing of Ted and me like around a campfire and like we're talking and sharing a crazy story. And then he did it. We sent him pictures of us, and then he did it. It looks, as close as can be for a little sketch. It looks just like us around a campfire. So that's a fun bonus if you buy the physical book. And well, actually, it's going to be in the Kindle too. But if you open it up, check it out. You're going to see Ted and me in the introduction that we wrote. So yeah, that's the story of the art, and I'm so excited that I get to have one of my own tribal members in there, tribal brothers.
That's really, really cool. And I think that would be a basis for a fantastic tattoo. I mean, I feel like you guys got to get that, or at least half of it.
I know, right? I know, right? That'd be cool. I'll tell Ted, because both of us are tatted up. I guess I'll add though too. I forgot. In October, we're having. So the opener of part 2 is from Jessica Doe. So that's Miss Cherokee Princess 1996. Amazing. Like once we got that from her in the open call, we're like, this is the opener. Just like Kushtuka, it just hit everything that we wanted.
I was going to say,
punch people in the face.
You came out swinging with Miss Cherokee Princess 1996. It's a bop.
Yeah. Yeah, seriously. She's so good. And she has a horror collection coming too. I think I could say that. But what was I saying? Oh, so she works in Tulsa at the Oklahoma Center for Humanities. So it's in downtown Tulsa. I've already been out there for a reading and signing and stuff. So Ted and I are going to go back there, and in October, I think it's October 9th, 10th, and 11th, because they're also doing a Cherokee Indian market or something. I forget. Anyway, we're going to go back to OCH, the Oklahoma Center for Humanities, and I think in September, Brent Learned, the interior artist, is going to be there. They're having a whole gallery of every single interior print like on the walls, and they're going to kind of blow them up and have them for people to go check out. And so Brent Learned is going to do a whole like premiere night and talk about it and stuff. And then we're going to go out there October and do an event, I think, in that facility next to the art. And then we're going to do a whole signing and all that kind of stuff, a little talk. So that's going to be really fun.
That's cool, because volume 2 drops in August.
Yeah, August 18th.
Do you want to dive into some of these stories?
Yeah, sure.
Cool.
Sounds good.
Obviously, the first one I was going to highlight was Miss Cherokee Princess.
Yeah.
Incredible story. I don't know what the spoiler policy is. I guess we can't say too much about it because it's a short, sharp, nasty tale.
Yeah.
I wonder, do you know if Jessica was involved in pageants or anything like that?
Yeah, so I got to visit her home, and we are on a texting basis now, and so I don't know. I know some, but I don't know a bunch of her history. I think she was, though. I think she. This is writing what you know. I think she was definitely in pageantry, possibly modeling. And she is totally writing from that world and seeing, she writes really beautifully and smartly, because I got to read some of her. I was trying to I worked for Counterpoint Press, and I was trying to acquire her horror collection, but it was too horror for them. But I got to read it early, and man, she just writes so viscerally, and she tackles issues very beautifully and perfectly.
It feels like a personal story. It's very visceral. It's very angry. It's really like darkly funny.
Yeah.
It's a great story.
Yeah. So I think maybe best to avoid spoilers, just so people can go enjoy it. I think once you open the book, you're going to be slapped in the face a little bit.
Go ahead, pick 2 or 3 stories that you want to highlight. I'll pick 2 or 3. Sure. We'll just sort of give people like a little sample, a little taste of the collection.
Sure. Maybe Civilized by AJ
Eversole.
Yeah. So that's a great one. Basically, it takes place in the past. It's kind of like historical horror fiction.
So it's Tulsa in the 1920s.
Basically, the protagonist is Cherokee or Chalagi and can pass as white, thanks to a father that he doesn't know, and he uses that for his family's benefit, whenever possible, even though he's not into it that much, right? This is an open call story. So when we first came across this, we really love that there's a historical fiction piece that we can go into. That also is tackling real issues that go on past and present for Cherokee folks. And she actually, if you follow AJ Eversole on social media, she actually just recently made a post kind of highlighting all this stuff, like, hey, this is the story I wrote, and this is what they used to call us, civilized, and they kind of differentiated us from all the other tribes. Especially in Oklahoma, the 5 civilized tribes, right? And so there is a lot of historical accuracies in it, and we made sure of that. And I learned some things too. But I thought that was a really well-crafted story, especially coming out of the gate out of an open call. It was amazing to see. And so I think other people are really going to like that. Let's see. I would say Guest Account.
Ooh,
by
Alicia Elliott. That one's brutal.
Yeah, so I guess it's fine to share, but I helped her name this one because the tentative title was like too similar to another one. So I said, what's something that really works for this? And I chose Guest Account, and everyone agreed. And so this is like really if you are a millennial or maybe slightly older, and about like growing up with the internet and that internet culture, and especially when you're too young for it. And so this is a really trippy one, where I'm not sure how much to say really, but it's very spooky. It gets under your skin, and I believe probably even women will appreciate even more and relate to it, versus what I can relate to it. But even as a young boy, like being on the internet and seeing things much too young, and in those forums and AOL Instant Messenger and all these weird things, probably a little kid and talking to adults that are acting like kids and whatever, all the weird stuff that came with the internet back then, and probably still do. But it's a very internet focused story in the 90s, basically. I think that's where she was doing it. And so it's a schoolgirl, and there's something going on with a tulpa, and I'll just leave it at that. But I love that one. I love all of them.
That one, kind of like Miss Cherokee, it feels so personal. It feels like someone who grew up in the minds of the early internet, when those should not have been formative experiences. But it just sort of lives and breathes that early internet lingo, and the way it tracks from a free website at the library to download codes to like get digital dogs, all the way forward to like crazy Reddit esoteric conspiracy threads. It's so fleshed out. That's a wild one.
I was happy to really work directly with her and give her quite a few notes to really amp it up and make it super tense and crazy. But yeah, I love that story. Let's see. There's so many great ones. I would say The Body Delivers by Erica Tremblay. And if the audience doesn't know Erica Tremblay, she is not really a writer per se for prose, but she writes screenplays and she directs. So she is known for like directing episodes and writing in the writer's room for like Reservation Dogs, Dark Winds. She wrote, directed, and I think produced her own movie that came out through Apple TV called Fancy Dance with Lily Gladstone starring. So she's very much a filmmaker, and so you can kind of see that because this is pretty cinematic. And this is the one story I believe that is kind of like morphing between like science fiction and horror. And I love sci-fi horror or horror sci-fi, whatever you want to call it. And this one really gets under your skin. It's really profound. You know, she had to, check in with her knowledge keepers and make sure things were accurate. And, we had some subtle changes that, we didn't want to get out there that made the story stronger and protected the knowledge of her people as well. But, this is really much looking into the future. It's, it's looking at relationships. It's bringing in some folklore, some traditions, and like this cool modern way, and it really makes you think about the future. And that's a really, really cool one that I really wanted to put toward the end because, I got to do the story order for part two. We had Ted do the first one, which we mostly, just to kind of tangent real quick, he concentrated on geographic. So like if you notice, like if you were to sit down and like do all the research of all the writers, like it really starts up way north in Alaska and goes through the continent, and then it ends back up with Waukesha rice back in Canada, as we call it. And this one, I was really trying to, look at mood and trying to have like almost, we didn't name them or section them off, but have kind of sections of things that would, apply to people. And I think a lot of really profound ones are like more toward the end where you get to like Tommy Orange, like the corpse room. Oh my God, that's real stuff right there. Joshua Whitehead, Ramona Emerson, who else is back there? Kimberly Blazer. Just a lot of like hard hitting, more like deeply conceptual ones are just I reserve for the end. And I love that one. The Body Delivers by Erica Tremblay. The last two are definitely forward and future looking. And a lot of us, like I said in the introduction, a lot of we view time as cyclical or a circle, and so maybe the future is the past, and maybe where are we right now, right? Also, Kimberly Blazer. Same with the first one with Limbs by Waukesha Rice. So these are both invited stories. So once Ted and I read both of them, we thought, okay, this is the closer. So just like Limbs kind of takes it back to visceral and just like kind of intense revenge and such. We wanted to end this second one like on this really beautiful note that is, it's not really a super gory story, it kind of winds it down, and it's also looking toward the future. And it's such a beautiful story because Kim is a poet, and she's very poetic, and you can see that, move over into her prose. And I actually, just to kind of plug it, I guess, she's the first acquisition for me for Counterpoint Books. So as Counterpoint Books leans more literary and such, and they kind of dip their toes in the genre, she has a collection coming out in October 18th called Red Ants, and I got to edit that. I got to acquire it, edit it, and I'm very excited for it. And it includes the making of monsters because she had to have it in there.
I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about your story, Ivories.
Cool. Thank you.
I was
Yeah,
like, this seems like a spiritual successor to his story in volume one. I'm like, oh wait, no, wait a minute. I recognize these characters.
yeah, cool. Yeah, I was just kind of curious because I haven't really talked to anyone about the story. Did you notice, like, did you get that it was until the dad comes in?
That was around the time
Gotcha,
when
cool. That's
when
what
I
I was hoping
realized,
for.
when it clicked for me, like, oh my gosh, this is part two, Back for Blood.
Awesome. Yeah, that's what I was hoping for with that little name drop. Um, yeah, that was fun to write. I really wanted to kind of continue. This is a sequel to Behind Colin's Eyes from Never Whistle at Night, where it's actually 80% of a Hawk family story of my dad as a 10-year-old in northeastern Utah, which is where they lived at the time, and on a hunting trip with his dad, or my grandpa Hawk. And so the new one, Ivories, stylized with a backwards R in the middle, um, is a 50 years later sequel where instead of my dad being the protagonist, it's me as a new dad. And it's very much based around, because I had, you know, um, the first story being kind of borrowed or given by my dad, and me kind of remixing it and like amping up the horror. The second one is I wanted to kind of include my own lore and things that have happened around my house. And because there's a lot of shit that goes down at the Hawk Nest, a lot of visitors, good and bad. And so I started chronicling them on Blue Sky. I think I deleted them all now. But I was just kind of sharing what was going on every night, and there's just a lot of weird stuff. So the things that happened to Sean in the story, and Rory, my wife's name is Victoria or Tori, and my daughter is Emma, or she's Mia in this, right? Um, a lot of it has happened in the house. So like the shadow man, the waving, and the whistles actually happening, and a lot of the spooky stuff, that was born out of stuff that actually happened in my house. So yeah, that was a fun one to write. I wanted to expand the lore.
But then on top of that, the crushing insomnia, the dread, the fear that you're messing everything up, like,
Yeah,
talk about like hard on the page, again, lived experience. Like, so many of these stories just are so visceral, and they feel like
yeah,
they're just ripped out of your everyday anxieties. And
yep.
you
Right,
were
what scares you, right?
yeah, you were a kid in the first one, and here you are, a young father. That one really puts you in it.
Thank you. Yeah, I was definitely just trying to, because I haven't totally come across horror stories. I still have a ton to read, right? But I haven't really come across indigenous horror stories where like a focus or a main part of the concept is fatherhood or new fatherhood. So, I was writing what I knew, every day, just like the anthology creation, I'm learning every day. So I was putting my own anxieties in there. I was writing what scared me. And I actually wrote this story after we made the final selection for all the open call stories. So I actually wrote this in Banff when I was doing the horror residency,
Okay, well,
because I didn't want to write an early story and just kind of be bummed out that, oh, someone wrote a better version of this concept or this creature or what have you, right?
mm-hmm.
And so it was kind of like in Banff where I was like, okay, I'll write a sequel story. I think that should be fun. And I had plenty of time to mentor my 6 mentees, but then also you had plenty of time up there because it was 2 weeks. So I had my own office up there, and I was staying there until 4 a.m., 5 a.m., and then just like trotting back to my hotel room. But yeah, we made the final selections there, I think the first week, and then really from there I had about a week to write this thing. So that was very fun. I was having kind of insomnia, kind of hallucinations up there too, because I was like working so much,
Yeah.
So it was all kind of coming together.
Good for a horror story, I suppose. Not great for your physical or mental health.
It's okay. It was
Yeah.
a fantastic time up there.
Of course, I want to talk about the Stephen Graham Jones story in this one, Res Dogs.
Yep.
Wow. This is an amazing short story.
Yeah,
It
I agree.
really, talking about cyclical things.
Hmm.
I don't want to do any dang spoilers.
I know that's tough, huh?
I will say broadly, there is humanizing certain characters and dehumanizing others, and
Mm,
then just flipping it back and forth, back and forth. Who is humanized, who is dehumanized, and
yep.
you're just left heartbroken for everyone.
Yep.
It's a really powerful story.
Yeah, I agree. Once we got that um the first draft and we're just both like, oh man, he did it again.
He did it again.
He's just so great.
Yeah.
Um yeah, and then, just like the first one, it's like how do you give edits to like a master?
Mm,
You know?
mm.
And we still did, he's very, he's very humble and accepting of, whatever you say. So that was cool. But yeah, that's a lovely story. It's not balls to the wall, but it's very much melancholic and surprising and yeah, deeply heartfelt and also just devastating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a
So
great one.
tell us about the audiobook, because just like yesterday or today, you were posting about the narrators for Volume 1.
Yeah, so we literally just got emailed, I don't know, maybe last Thursday or Friday about hey, here's a list of narrators and choose your favorite and or your top, you have ranked choice and then any details that narrator might need, and they're doing this for 21 people, and this is Random House Canada once again, so it's an in-house audiobook and they're handling all the production once again. And it's really neat because the first one, like I did in my social media post, there's 10 narrators. So quite a few have, a bunch of stories. Some of them only have one or two, but we spread it out. And basically, the audio book producer just kind of tries their best to make it happen where, like, if this is your favorite narrator, they're going to hire that person and they're going to read your story. So with the first one, we have people like Kenneth Teo Horn, who is Dear Lady and Reservation Dogs. I mean, she's all over, like Hemlock Grove.
That's awesome.
Yeah, she's so prolific on TV. She was just in The Lowdown with Sterling Harjo and Ethan Hawke. She's written, directed, and produced her own, feature now called Seeds. It's like a horror comedy thriller, home invasion thing. She's great. And just to kind of like put this little detail in there, because I don't think I shared her anywhere before, but when I was at Indigipop X, which is the Indigenous Comic Con out in Oklahoma City, there was a point where we're doing, I think, the award ceremony, and right beforehand they gave us drink tickets, and I was in line to get a drink or whatever, and then I saw kind of like right next to me in the line, she was there. Because I knew she was there. We're all just kind of, it's a smaller con and, a lot of us know each other. I just kind of knew her through watching her since I think I first saw her in Hemlock Grove.
Mm.
So that was like 2016 or 2015. And then just like kind of being starstruck, like she's just right next to me. Like,
Yeah.
I know you just read like 3 stories from Neverwhere Sun Night. But then I just kind of turned to her. I didn't say anything. And then I turned to her again, and then she looked at me in the eyes and then just started talking to me like she knew me. I was like, you know who I am? And she like recognized me and like was just, she's such a cool, calm person, and just started talking to me like a friend. And I was like, holy shit, this is crazy.
If Dear Lady came up and started talking to me, I might take a step back.
Yeah, I did have that thought. I was like, oh, I think maybe I'm one of the good ones. She doesn't seem to be attacking me.
On a good day. I mean, you never know, right?
Right. Yeah. So yeah, she was in the first book. You have oh shoot, I don't know how to pronounce her first name. Is hyphenated. It's El Maya Tailfeathers. So she's from like Night Raiders, Blood Quantum. She was the ex-wife. She is all over on TV. I mean, I can't even list it all, and it's all in that little post I shared. She read quite a few stories. She has a great voice. There's just all these narrators that get hired like across the continent, and they get to go to a professional studio down the street or near them, and it gets all kind of piecemeal together into this wonderful production. And so I did hint that some of them are returning because I looked at the list, and yeah, depending on who picks what across the 21 writers, you'll definitely be seeing some people come back for blood.
So is it too early to say anything about a possible Never Whistle at Night Volume 3?
No, I could say something. It's going to happen. We're just wondering about the details, and we were hoping we would hear this summer. So it's going to happen. I won't say the details, but we're trying to see what's going to happen with it. But yeah, it's for sure happening.
Okay, you heard it here, folks.
Part 3.
Yeah. So speaking about what you're working on next and other projects, can you tell us about the Native Horror Index?
Yeah. Oh man. So just like the Never Whistle at Night project or series, whatever you want to call it. My big goal is, I don't know, I feel like I'm in this position now that I have a tiny sliver of like, I don't know the term, but I'm kind of a gatekeeper in a way, exposure.
Yeah.
I have some influence. I want to do all I can to get other people noticed. My work is like, secondary. I'll get to it. I'm almost 36. A bunch of your favorite writers got to where they are when they started at 50 or so. So I got some time. So right now I want to really help the community at large, even though, not all of them are my own tribes or nations or whatever, but they're native, they're in Indian country, they're in Turtle Island. I want them to get noticed because I want more of this stuff to happen, to be created. I want more native art across all the mediums. So with the Native Horror Index, that was the name I landed on. That was most applicable to what it is basically I want to see more native or indigenous horror creatives noticed, whatever medium they're in. And so I think it still shocks me where like people haven't heard of Never Whistle at Night, or they haven't heard of certain things like the movie Prey. Like a lot of people are still, figuring that out, or like, oh, that's a movie. So I was like, oh, there's like a kind of a discovery problem. And we're such a kind of a small group across even all these numerous mediums. It's still fairly small. So I was thinking, what if I kind of create a directory or an index where it was helpful in kind of 3 different ways. It's kind of industry facing. So if, Hollywood is looking at this thing and using it as a resource, or other people, independent Hollywood making film, TV productions or stage plays, what have you, they kind of have this, this directory, or this kind of like formless MySpace for natives that do horror stuff. So we have like, film, TV people on there. We have horror writers, for literature, podcasters. We have tabletop RPG folks in there. All sorts of people, playwrights. And so I really wanted to highlight all these people and get them noticed, whether it's the industry looking for them, whether it's other natives just being like, oh, cool, like I want to support, a fellow native, and oh, there's a cool podcast, look, and I have all the links. So basically, if you go to the nativehorrorindex.com, it's there's a big search bar. You can type in whatever you want. I have filters by like nation, by major city near them, and the nearest major city, so you can kind of see geographical, just in case you want to support someone local. Or that's for film, TV, like they want to hire locals, or if they're based in LA, easily reachable, things like that. And then it's basically just the pages and pages of their profile picture. You click on that, everyone has a landing page or a profile page that has their bio that they send me. Every link you could think about, IMDb, personal website, whatever it might be, socials. And I started that idea in last July, actually, 2025. I put out a social media post. I think it was mostly Instagram. I said, hey, here's the idea. Here's what I'm trying to do. I'm going to do it myself. And, send me all your info to horror@shanehawk.com. I made like a little subdomain or sub email for it. And so it's because my normal email is crazy. I need some filtering. So about 60 something people got back to me with like their headshots and details and all that. And it took me, I think I launched it early May this year. So it almost took me a year to build this website. And so, yeah, I'm, it's still pretty basic. It's just really just a list, right? It's just little pictures and that's about as much as I could do. So it's really trying to help people get noticed, just like Never Was Late Night's open calls and wherever we go from there too in the future. Just trying to get more people hired, noticed. If they make music, go stream them. If they make movies, buy it, rent it, something. If they're a horror author, maybe follow them, go to their events, or rent their book. Well, check out their books from the library, support local libraries, So that's kind of the gist of the Native Horror Index.
That is such a cool, ambitious project. Please tell me you didn't bash it together on WordPress. You didn't cobble it together from widgets.
No, WordPress frustrates me because it's very advanced and it's very simplified at the same time.
It's the worst.
And I'll break something if I do WordPress plugins. Yeah. But yeah, that's a fun project.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, random question. I feel like it's a Halloweeny podcast. I'm obligated to ask, did you grow up in Oklahoma or San Diego?
San Diego, born and raised.
Okay. So what was Halloween like growing up in San Diego?
Yeah, so I shared this numerous places, but my first memory is literally Halloween. So I only have one memory from when I was 4 years old. Otherwise, my brain starts at my 5th birthday for some reason. But when I was 4, Halloween, across from my grandma's house, my parents, I was in my mom's arms, I think. And they opened the door, and it was the nice lady, and like, I think she was a cat or something. And then out pops from the other side the husband, and he was in overalls and had, I think even like straw coming out of his neck and a pig mask on. And it just terrified me. And he was oinking and snorting. And a humanoid pig, shapeshifter thing. I was like, I don't think I screamed and stuff like that, but I still have literally the mental image, from when I was 4. But other than that, I always dressed up for Halloween. We grew up with not a bunch of money, so my dad would make my costumes. So I think I was 5, probably 5. So the next year, one of my favorite things was he made me like a Batman outfit out of like, I think, a Champion sweatshirt and like and then he drew like the abs and the logo and stuff, because my dad's an artist as well, and mechanic, but like he made that, and like I think he put some cotton balls in there to like puff up the muscles, and so that was fun. Yeah, I was definitely connected to Halloween, from the earliest age I can remember. And, I always loved, going trick-or-treating. I love scaring people. So before I ever wrote, just one of my favorite things is pranking, scaring someone around the corner, jumping out of a trash can, whatever it might be. And just like that reaction. It's just thrilling and fun to me. And I get to do as a writer, right? So that's fun as well. But yeah, Halloween was always fun. I was Ghostface probably like 5 times, I think, especially across the late 90s, early 2000s, when they had like so many different iterations of Ghostface, especially that one that had the blood in the mask.
The little squeeze bulb with the blood inside the mask.
Yeah.
Classic.
It had that tubing through your arm. And then you could squeeze a heart, and then it would go, so I think I was like that 4 or 5 times. But I was really into it. I did kind of like do that, hey, I'm too cool kind of thing once I got to like I don't know, 15 or 16. So I kind of distanced myself from it. I was just like all about chasing girls and playing football or whatever. But I definitely always loved scary movies. One of my memories is like when the Blair Witch Project came out. I didn't see it in theaters, didn't know about it, but my dad got it on VHS when it came out, and he pretended like he got the tape from like a garage sale or an estate sale, and he kind of had it fast forwarded enough where you didn't see any credits or anything. So to me, when he put it in, because I don't think I actually saw the tape either. He just kind of was like, "Hey, I got this, thing. Want to check out, see what's on it?" Because that was the big thing back then was random videotapes and whatever's, because I used to record stuff, on the VCR. And then he was like, well, what is this? How that movie goes. And then, so, we definitely watched that when my mom was at work. So that was terrifying. And I still have that memory, that last in the corner scene.
Wow, your dad is a hero. He really went above and beyond for movie night.
Yeah, that's something I really cherish was movie night, man. Like, I'm sure same with you. Like, going all week at school and then Friday night or so, if we could afford it. Like, I think we could only afford like maybe Blockbuster was pretty pricey, but we did the local grocery store, and we also did Hollywood Video is somewhat cheaper, so we kind of went there too. But I definitely remember Blockbuster and all those late fees, because we'd also be lazy with returning it too. But man, just going there, and we never got candy there, but we got candy at like the grocery store or something. But just those aisles and just like going with your parents, like that's something that I really wish I could give my daughter. Maybe we'll build our own library in the garage or something. But it was such a special time of the week, and that was like for probably 10, 15 years of my life. Yeah, love Blockbuster nights or video nights, Friday nights. Get the microwavable popcorn. But yeah, I watched many horror movies.
You can fast forward past the credits of Blair Witch Project and be like, what's this weird stream I found? I don't know how you would pull that off for your daughter.
That's good. I'll figure it out.
Shane, this was awesome. Thank you for spending this hour with us. Where can people find you online?
Just the easiest that points everywhere is shanehawk.com. So just my name with the .com added.
All right, Shane, we'll talk again.
All right. See you soon, Jeff.
Thanks for listening. Please subscribe and follow. We're now on YouTube. Links are in the show notes. You can find me at jeffccarter.com and pick up my collection, We Bleed Orange and Black, 31 fun-sized tales for Halloween. Until next time, stay spooktacular.